Hello everyone, welcome back. Croeso cynnes yn ôl I chi. Dwi'n gobeithio bod chi wedi mwynhau yr egwyl. I hope you've had a good break and that you're ready for our next and final session of the day here on the headline stage at Wales Tech Week. Now, as AI reshapes the economy, Wales has a unique opportunity to lead. Today's panel, in collaboration with gold partner Vantage Data Centres, will examine how data centres, energy and policy will transform Wales's digital future. Jinel Fourie, the chair of the discussion, is a strategic public affairs leader, specialising in the intersection of transformative technologies and societal needs. As Director of Public Policy for Europe, the Middle East and Africa at Vantage Data Centres, she established and now leads the region's policy and community engagement function, helping advance the expansion of hyperscale AI and cloud infrastructure across the EMEA. So please welcome Jinel and our panellists for this final discussion of the day to the stage. Diolch.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're looking really forward to the discussion with all of you and our amazing speakers who I'll introduce. Alcine said a little bit. We would like to keep this a pretty interactive conversation as well, so if you've got any questions, please just raise your hand throughout the discussion and we'll bring you in. Otherwise, we'll save a couple of minutes at the end, but no need for this to be a rigid afternoon session. So today I'm joined by Michael Groves, Head of Digital Economy from the Welsh Government. Michael operationally leads the government's AI and economy work and has played a central role in the lead up to the announcement of the 2 AI growth zones recently in Wales. Please welcome Michael. Yes, we all love claps. Give us claps, please. Secondly, we have Andy Grant, the EMEA Director of Supercomputing, AI, Higher Education and Research from NVIDIA. Andy is responsible for driving supercomputing and AI adoption across Europe. We're looking really forward to having Andy, and he's traveled across many different countries to be able to join us here today, so we're really excited to have him participate. Then we have got Matthew. Matthew Baines is VP of Strategic Partners for Cloud and Service Providers at Schneider Electric and is also currently transitioning into a new role of Vice President for Secure Power and Data Centres for the UK and Ireland. So also congrats on the new role that Matthew is busy moving into. Matthew sits on several industry boards, including the European Data Centre Association Board, and works to champion innovation, resilience, and sustainability, ensuring that industry meets the demands of a rapidly evolving digital world. And lastly, joining us is David Ferguson from EDF Energy. David is the Head of Innovation, where he spent his career across climate strategy, digital R&D, and energy innovation, and is now focusing on how low-carbon energy ecosystems can power the next generation of AI. So this combination of speakers, plus me, your moderator, we're here today to talk with you about how we can build an AI economy, focusing on really Wales, data centres, and the future of digital infrastructure. And this is a very timely topic, considering Wales just received 2 AI growth zone designations. But I would also like this to be an opportunity for us to all just think a little bit outside the box and cast some vision for the future, right? We know that building an economy isn't something that happens overnight. It's something that takes collaboration, perseverance, sweat, determination, and a lot of bumps in the road that we all need to navigate together, a lot of which we'll be discussing today. So I would like each of our panelists just to think about and share with us, what do you envision a thriving AI economy in a decade's time to look like from your perspective? So if you can please quickly introduce your companies, what they contribute to the AI economy, and Michael, obviously, the Welsh Government's perspective, and what your vision for an AI economy in a decade's time looks like. David, let's start with you.
All right, thank you. Well, it's great to be here. So I work for EDF. We are the biggest producer of electricity in the UK. We're the biggest supplier of electricity in the UK. And my job is to imagine new products and services and ways of working that can accelerate our path towards net zero, but also net zero in an energy system that is secure and affordable. So with that, my view of this is going to be massively clouded by the fact that I work for an electricity company. And I will say that it kind of all starts with electricity, because you can't have AI without electricity. You can't build the models, you can't train the models, you can't run the models, you can't run the devices that will access the models without electricity. And we've definitely seen an explosion in interest in electricity among the tech sector in the last year or so, with some eye-watering statistics about how much new power is going to be needed to power AI in the future. So from my point of view, I think there are two parts to this. I think an AI economy has to be a low-carbon AI economy. That's the essential part, that all of this infrastructure that's going to be built has to be consistent with our broader societal and economic goals to create a low-carbon economy. So that's the first thing. It has to be consistent. It mustn't make that more difficult. In the UK, we have this Clean Power 2030 objective. We have to make sure that it's consistent with that and doesn't endanger it beyond 2030 as well. The second is that we use AI and all of this infrastructure to contribute to that low carbon economy. So these enormous assets that are going to be sitting in the energy system, how do we use them to balance the energy system? And also, how do we use AI to make our homes more smart, our businesses more smart, our cities smart, our grid smart? So how do we adopt AI everywhere across the energy sector? So I think it's a low carbon AI economy for the low carbon economy. That's what I think we should be aiming for.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Matthew, please share.
Thank you. Likewise, very good to be here in Wales today for Wales Tech Week. And nice to be up here talking to you all. I work for Schneider Electric. It's a French firm, global firm. Schneider is really an energy management automation organization. We're actually a manufacturer. We are very engaged in research and development for energy efficient infrastructure around the world for several different segments and markets, but really infrastructure that can underpin and support the digital economy and the AI economy. But more importantly, really the blend between energy efficiency, digitization and decarbonization of the grid as well. We're really focused on that element and that part of the equation as an organization. I'm based in the UK. My prior role was global, and I certainly, when we talk about AI and technology, the boom is phenomenal. It's unfathomable sometimes in some regions of the world that we see, the speed and the pace at which it's growing and the demand it creates in terms of the grid infrastructure. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. The AI economy, it's, I think people are still navigating this, but in essence, the direction of travel is it's a fantastic opportunity for everybody on this planet to harness it and take advantage of it. How do we see it? Certainly when you look at energy, grid, buildings, infrastructure, to be able to digitize that utilizing AI technology, AI applications, to really optimize, I think you talked about it a little bit there, to help us optimize everything that we do in our day-to-day lives. Not only will AI be embedded in probably most things we do in our day-to-day lives, as an individual, I think you'll see all of the infrastructure we use in our day-to-day lives will be harnessing, utilizing, capturing AI technology to really help it operate better, run better, optimize better. That'll help alleviate some of the pressures that we see on perhaps the grid, the pressures we see in terms of transportation, congestion, everything I think that we do, the AI technology can help optimize, navigate that and simplify our lives, but also create a lot of job opportunities and a lot of, let's say, economic upside to the local regions that it sits in. So, thank you.
Thank you. So I work for NVIDIA. We provide a lot of the hardware infrastructure, the GPUs, the CPUs, the network switches that underpin a lot of the infrastructure going into the data centers provided by colleagues here. And in addition to the hardware, though, actually the vast majority of our workforce are working on software and software optimizations the development of new models, the development of new software libraries for specific industries that can take advantage of the underlying infrastructure. So why are we doing that? Why are we spending so much time and effort on the software side? That's because I think, within the next few years, it's almost becoming obvious now that we will see AI everywhere in every industry. We're at the early stages of this journey. It feels like things are moving very fast. They are, but I think we're still very much at the early stages, and the economies that will get ahead are the ones that are investing in their people and as well as their infrastructure. So for me, what I would like to see in that time period is a very well-trained, very AI literate workforce. And that means starting in schools, that means starting with apprentices, as well as my area, which is higher education and research. There are going to be magnificent breakthroughs in all industry sectors, from manufacturing to healthcare to new drugs. We will see that already. Those are going to transform the economy, but we need to make sure that people are ready to accept them, first of all, and exploit those developments as they emerge. One thing I'd like to see as well is that AI becomes easier to use, and part of that becomes trustworthy AI. So at the moment, we'll see some AI models will give false answers. That's because they haven't been trained properly or they haven't been trained sufficiently. We'll see that that continued development over the next few years, and those models becoming a lot more accurate, a lot more easy to use. We'll see longer context windows for AI queries, so that a longer memory in how things are happening and how they're interpreted, that will give greater reasoning for queries that people are making. And of course, a lot of activity in AI agents at the moment, multiple agents, tackling more difficult tasks. There'll be a lot more of that, again, in pretty much every industry sector. Coming back to the energy question, one of the things I think we will see over the next few years is the whole ecosystem becoming more energy efficient. I'll talk probably a little bit later about some of the energy optimizations that are happening. That's going to, obviously, data center capacity over the next few years is going to consume a large amount of grid capacity. We need to make sure we get that balance right, and it's not at the detriment of the environment. And so balancing that is going to be critical over the next few years. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Andy. And again, very pleased to be here at Wales Tech Week. So thank you to the organisers and for the opportunity on the panel. I'm really encouraged by some of the words from industry partners here on the stage. If the question is, what do we envisage the AI economy looking like 10 years from now? I think by 2035, from a Welsh Government perspective, our vision is pretty clear. We want to see a thriving AI community that's built on trust, and responsibility and innovation. We would want to see we want to be recognized as a global leader for responsible delivery and deployment of AI. We would envisage our newly designated AI growth zones maturing and consolidating themselves as globally recognized hubs for excellence. And growth zones being clusters of good activity, innovation, R&D, and deployment of AI that attract investments, create thousands of highly skilled jobs, and drive prosperity and growth for all, really. We see digital infrastructure as being a strategic backbone to this, with Wales hosting green, energy-efficient data centers that can lean on renewable energy that is generated locally and provides resilience and sustainability. And then high-capacity connectivity and edge computing that helps deliver accessibility for AI solutions into healthcare, manufacturing, public services, and so on. But in all of this, it's our people that I think are going to be at the heart of the transformation. So we want Wales to be, 10 years from now, a place with a world-class AI workforce that is supported by partnerships between industry, academia, and government. We would want AI to be embedded across all of society so that everybody can benefit and participate in the revolution at hand. I think in all of this, though, we want to ensure that AI serves the public. So we want to make sure that AI solutions are deployed that can bring about very immediate access in Wales to things like predictive healthcare, that can drive improvements in smart transport and lean into climate adaptation solutions as well. So I guess, in short, it's about AI not being the technology, but being the enabler and the driver for prosperity and growth for the nation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. There's a couple of words that really stuck out to me throughout all of this, and I think it's a very ambitious vision across all of these things. And the data center sector usually thinks in very quick timelines, right? A 10-year horizon seems like eternity to us, but honestly, it passes like this when you're speaking about the scale that is required to truly build an AI economy. Some points like Matthew, you spoke about really leveraging AI across the ecosystem to optimize everything that we do, right? Optimization is something that we speak about in everything, but it takes forever to truly embed and become harmonious throughout the ecosystem. The point about AI being trustworthy and having a trusted underpinning, I think the data center sector and the digital economy sector is slowly putting its head out there and becoming more publicly visible. And there's a lot of myths that revolve around the data center sector that we need to be working collaboratively and collectively to myth bust, but also to make sure that we're mitigating against some of the truths that society might challenge when it comes to that infrastructure underpinning AI, particularly around the point of like energy efficiency, sustainability, circularity, the societal spillover effects. So when we go into the rest of the discussion, we'll be talking about some of the kind of balancing acts that we need to navigate together to get through to achieve this vision that we're looking towards. And the first balancing act that we'll be talking through is around speed and sustainability. The second is around balancing the grid. And then the third is really making sure that we're harnessing the spillover effects, the socioeconomic benefits, and retaining those benefits for Wales as well. So, diving in, Michael, when it comes to speed and sustainability, and when it comes to AI and speed, there is enormous pressure to sorry, is that me squeaking like that? Can you guys hear it? It is me, right? Sorry, apologies for that. I'll move forward in case it's my microphone at the back or something. There's enormous pressure on the industry to deliver at pace and at scale when it comes to AI. And I think the AI growth zones, they've got ambitious targets for capacity deployment as well, right? So from a government perspective, what initiatives would you want to see industry really lean into to best balance speed and sustainability? And also, what do you see government's role at all levels being to create an enabling environment to create that balancing act across speed and sustainability?
Yeah, it's government's role in that. I think first and foremost, the balance between speed and sustainability is not a net zero game. I think we've already heard from some colleagues in industry about the need for the move and further building on leaning into green and renewable energy, and I think it's about designing in first principles green, renewable energy, circular economy activities that ensure that we're being as sustainable as possible in the deployment of the technologies needed to underpin AI use. Government's role, I think, in enabling that environment is about making sure that we're giving out clear policy signals, that we're supporting the right kind of activities when it comes to things like planning. Critically, though, that we are working in parallel to ensure that there's the right skills provision and talent pipeline in order to underpin the industry needs that we'll see today and moving forward in the future of the next 10 years. And I think also we need to, where we can, work effectively to, whether it be incentivize or partner with activities for green and sustainable energy projects that can be co-located or near-sited to infrastructure needs for AI. If we get that right, then Wales absolutely can be at the forefront of an AI revolution and the needs of its people and its industry.
Brilliant, thank you. And when you were sharing the vision of an AI future, you were really speaking about it being globally leading, globally recognized, and that's an ambitious target, right? And I think one that all of the speakers on the stage strongly support, because we do see the potential. There's great skills space here. There is potential for large amounts of renewable energy. There's availability of land, and I can speak just from a Vantage perspective. The Welsh government and the local governments have actually been fantastic to work with because they do send clear policy signals, but the importance of the consistency in that clarity, and then the consistency in the putting our money where our mouth is and doing what we say we will do, creating a clear, stable, predictable environment are also really important. So I'm actually going to jump to you, David. From an energy infrastructure perspective, what sort of policy mechanisms and innovations do you believe could not have it as a trade-off between sustainability and speed, but rather create sort of a harmonious environment that can simultaneously accelerate deployment, but also the renewable transition?
Well, this is the trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Or the $7 trillion, if you believe McKinsey and their forecast of what's going to be invested in AI infrastructure up to 2030. But it's absolutely immense, the amount of investments that are forecast to be made. We heard today, actually, from Ofgem. They were talking about the number of requests for grid connections for data centers in the UK. And in the first 6 months of this year, they had requests for 80 gigawatts of connections.
Wow.
So 80 gigawatts is slightly more than the total electricity capacity of the UK. So if you connect all of that, there's nothing else left for homes, businesses, hospitals, railways, anything. So clearly 80 gigawatts is not going to be built. It would probably be more like 10% of that. But I think the crucial question is which 10%? And I think there's a lot that we can do to really help better identify the projects that are most viable, most solid, most likely to actually be built, and which are going to most positively contribute to the UK economy and to the UK energy system, which is, what we're concerned about. And I think there's maybe a little bit of a bargain that can be struck here, which is if we can identify those factors that could be most beneficial, then maybe we can accelerate things like grid connections and water supply and all the other connections that are necessary. And there are three things that we're particularly looking at to really enhance the performance of big data centers. The first is co-location with power generation, where you actually have new sources of low carbon electricity produced on site or extremely close by to power that data center. So we're looking to develop a site in Nottinghamshire in the middle of England that will have a gigawatt-ish of data center with a gigawatt-ish of nuclear and a gigawatt-ish of solar, all on the same site. And what that will mean is that it's effectively self-sufficient with new low-carbon power. But also, it's an amazing platform for stacks of other things to come in and to use that infrastructure alongside it. So I think that's the first thing that we're looking at, which we think is promising. The second is these are enormous single assets to have on the system. And if we can harness the potential flexibility of those sites to ramp up and ramp down their demand at different times of day, that could be extremely useful for the grid. That's not done at the moment. The verdict is out on whether or not it's attractive to do or even possible to do, but flexibility markets are now really taking off in this country. So we're looking at that. And the third area is a third of all of the power that goes into a data center comes out as heat and is spaffed out into the atmosphere. And so that's a bit of a shame, particularly when we're trying to decarbonize heat in this country. So how do we harness that, plug it into district heating networks, plug it into industry and reuse that heat? So we've been working with a bunch of different partners on how to bring that to life. It works in other countries, it works in Scandinavia. It doesn't really happen here at the moment, but it could. So I think that's what I'd love to see, a kind of a grand bargain where that is the requirement for big new data centers, and in return, there's a massive acceleration of their development.
Amazing, thank you. And yes, absolutely.
Just to compliment, I think I think sometimes these big numbers are bounded about, and people say, "Goodness me, they're going to take up all the power, and I can't even power my house and things like that." You are right to say it won't quite be like that, but I also think it's just important to state that digital economy is underpinned. Everything sits in a data center, so it sits in a physical infrastructure. By the nature of a data center, they are and will continue to strive to be even better, the most sustainable facilities in the world. I would argue, actually, for that matter, because the number one bill is the electricity bill, and it is vast. When you're talking 500 megawatts, 1 gigawatt plus 8 gigawatts, whatever it might be, that's a lot of energy. I think the global numbers are, I think there's something like 65 terawatt hours currently in data center, and it's due to grow to 150, something like that, by 2030. And I think Portugal is about 50 terawatt hours. So it's a big number. So they have a very big vested interest to make sure they are the most sustainable facilities in the world. It's just good for business to be that.
Thank you. And on the point around industry naturally driving itself to be as sustainable as possible, to be as energy efficient as possible, Andy, can you share a bit of what you see the innovation pipeline looking like to really balance both energy efficiency and the speed and pace required for compute capacity deployment?
Sure. I'm going to cover that question from two perspectives. Firstly, hardware and then software. But just before I do that, I'll just pick up on that point about intelligent use of district heat networks. So, the conversation today is about mega data centers and the impact of those. But there are many local data centers, small data centers happening in city centres, next to office blocks, etc. There are some innovative firms in the UK who are putting those smaller data centres next to hospitals, next to swimming pools. My local leisure centre, for example, in Manchester, has just installed a small data centre that's serving the town. That is saving the swimming pool £100,000 a year in electricity bills. That's the kind of, if we do that on larger scales as well, whole towns could be heated, etc. We've just got to connect where the heat is generated to where the heat is consumed in a bit more intelligent fashion. In terms of our technology and what we're doing, so I've been selling supercomputers or involved in supercomputers for well over 30 years. And if I look at the energy efficiency gains of the latest machines, if during that time period the internal combustion engine had improved at the same rate, you would be able to drive several times the distance to the moon and back on a single tank of fuel. That's how far we've come, but there's still a long way to go. So some of that is around the cooling technologies. So we talked about that. A key one is around direct liquid cooling. So this is extracting some of that heat generated by these GPUs, these chips, extracting that to water rather than just letting it go out into the atmosphere. Water is much more energy efficient for absorbing heat than just letting it go out into the atmosphere. And you will see the latest generation of systems using warm water cooling, i.e. we pass through copper pipes, we pass warm water on top of the GPUs, on top of network switches and so on. That water gets heated up, but not very much. And then we have it loops within the system to cool that back down. In the UK, we can take advantage of our relatively modest summer temperatures here and make sure we can almost get free cooling all year round if we have the right technologies and energy efficient data centers. So that's a key thing in terms of the hardware design. On the GPUs themselves, each generation of GPU is about 20–25% more energy efficient than the previous generations by virtue of some of these techniques like liquid cooling, but also the fabrication mechanisms that are used, how we're deploying them, etc. So one key thing, particularly for training large language models, is the network that's used, the network within the machines connecting the GPUs together. If you have very fast GPUs and a very poor quality network, it will be equivalent to having very fancy office blocks in a city center, but no road network to get people to and from the offices. So you have to make sure you've got a very efficient network within the machine so that the GPUs aren't starved of data. And if you do that, then you end up not having to move data backwards and forwards to anything like the same extent, and that saves energy. Similarly, within the chips themselves, if you can combine the CPU with the GPU with a shared memory component, so you don't have to move data backwards and forwards, that saves enormous amounts of energy. And these are little things, but they're all optimizations that add together to make these massive energy savings. So that's on the hardware side. On the software side, the use of new techniques, so embedding AI within applications to replace perhaps a traditional physics technique or chemistry, molecular modeling technique. The use of AI and data-driven approaches is saving massive amounts of energy. So just to take one example, in weather forecasting, the weather forecast is probabilistic. So the forecast agencies will set off 1,000 forecasts with slightly different input parameters, and then they will look at what the probability of a particular forecast is for the next day or the next 2 days, etc. So you'll always see a probability of rain or a probability of wind in those forecasts. Now, if you can start those, instead of having 1,000 jobs start that, you have 10 jobs starting that, and you look back at previous history of what forecasts have looked like, you can then predict with a high degree of accuracy what the forecast is going to be without having to run all those large complex simulations. That saves enormous amounts of time, enormous amounts of energy by embedding AI in that forecast process. And you can apply exactly the same techniques, whether it's designing new molecules or healthcare analysis, same techniques essentially apply. So massive savings there by using those kinds of techniques. So yeah, I think so just in summary, from the hardware side, the data center side, and the software side, there are optimizations that are being continued to be made, and each generation is becoming much more energy efficient than the past. But as the scale out of these things is increasing, then obviously, you might be consuming a lot less for a particular job, but if you're doing far more jobs, you end up consuming the same amount or more power. So we have to continue to fight on this and get that balance right.
Thank you. And it's really interesting to talk about how the whole sort of infrastructure stack and the technology stack can evolve and work in unison to drive a more efficient, a more optimized system, and a system that operates almost circularly and benefiting itself, right? Using AI to advance the smartness of the grid, but using a smart grid to power an efficient AI economy. With the limited time we have left, I'd actually like to jump over to how we can also make sure that we're benefiting the most from the economic and societal benefits from an AI economy. So, speed round across the panelists. If there was one area that you feel that we really need to be investing in today, or let's say over the next 2 years, as industry, as government, across academia, across collaborations, partnerships, whatever it might be, to really make sure that we're driving a holistic and positive set of spillover socioeconomic benefits for the Welsh society, but also to retain those benefits in Wales, what would be the things that you would recommend to all of us in this room to really grab hold of and run with? Start with you, David.
Yeah, okay, that's quite a big question. But it's a very good question.
You can go to Michael if you like.
Absolutely we have to think that way. How do we make the most of this opportunity? I used to live and work in China, and China's economy is a digital economy now, and they realize that a digital economy is not based on labor and intellectual property necessarily. It's built on data. That is the driver of a digital economy. And so they have done a huge amount to build the data infrastructure for the nation. So unlocking data sets that are managed by national government, local government, state-owned companies, private sector, everything, creating really consistent ways of talking about different data sets, creating data marketplaces, using data as seed capital for startups. the whole thing basically to make sure that that economy can work and run effectively using the data that's available. That's what we all need to do to make sure that the rich veins of data that we have in the UK and in Wales can be used to benefit people to the absolute maximum extent. So it's data plumbing.
Data plumbing.
Me?
Go for it, Matthew.
I think that the government has a huge role to play here, of course, because this AI growth zone announcement, I think, does represent a fantastic opportunity for Wales, and one that I think should definitely harness and leverage. There's going to be a lot of AI data. It's all underpinned in this digital infrastructure world of data centers. We've got to build those first. When you're building 500 megawatts or a gigawatt of data center, there's a lot of job creation there. There's a huge opportunity to train and upskill a whole new workforce to not only to in the construction side of the equation, that's the build. Prior to that, we have the design, so people can really step in and start to look at the design of data centers, the design of AI ecosystem, the construction side of things, a huge amount of jobs that it generates there. And then the operate side of the data center, where we need the engineers, we need field service engineers, we need programmers, we need building management engineers. And this creates a huge opportunity, I think, as well. But then when you build a data center, the tenants coming in using NVIDIA equipment a lot of the time, the big US tech firms, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they are coming in with a lot of investment, I'll put it that way, high tech investment as well. They want to breed the next generation of engineers, of tech engineers. They are desperate to bring on board the new youth, the new workforce for their future, and a lot of that's around AI, programming, technology, to develop the apps and the programs for the future that will, as we've talked about today, help optimize the grid, help optimize the building technology, the transportation, and really make the economy a lot more affluent as well, surrounding that AI ecosystem. So it's there, and I think it's a great opportunity for the region to take it.
Okay. Well, you know, I have responsibility for higher education and research, so my answer is going to be around educating, making sure we have an educated workforce of the future, starting at schools and going through to universities. Yesterday, I was at an OECD AI in Education Forum, where there were basically education ministers from around the world all looking at how they tackle this problem of education in schools on AI, and AI for teachers and AI for students. Everybody's tackling that same issue of how do we create this you know, skills enablement for the future. That, I think, is the key thing, because if we have a skilled workforce, they will stay in place. You know, with the infrastructure that will be here, with the enablement around AI startups and the ecosystem, there will be no reason for people to need to move to London or to the US or whatever. That, I think, is the success criteria. Can we keep people in place? And that is around ecosystem enablement. From my perspective, a large part of that is around collaboration with universities, because that is where a lot of the next generation of innovations is going to come from. Yeah, a recent example being the work we've done on Welsh large language models, focused with Bangor University and UCL, which is now, you know, given much better Welsh language services capability and translation services capability than was, you know, around a year ago.
So I think I agree with everything that's gone before. I think there are immediate economic spillover effects from data center growth, AI development activity in that space, in construction, electrical engineers, data center operations, and the professions needed to run DCs. I think, though, what's absolutely critical is about Welsh Government's ability to create an environment that fosters the ecosystem for talent pipeline, for IP development, and to retain those impacts in Wales for Wales. I think it's critical that certainly when we look at the South Wales growth zone, Welsh Government is in a position to be able to broker and foster relationships between organisations that all are involved in different parts of this economy, the AI economy, and maximize on some of the fabulous skills and talent and expertise that we have already geographically in Wales, whether it be compound semiconductor, excellence in academia, the operational capacity of the data center community that we have here and that is growing as well. But I think in all of this, we need to ensure as a government that we are supplying and working with educational pathways, academia, and the talent pipeline required in order to lean into a responsible and ethical industry for AI in Wales.
Thank you very much. Something that I've always appreciated since getting exposure to the way business is done in Wales and the way people in Wales think, there's really a strong drive and like a deep commitment to leave a better Wales than the one that you stepped into, right? And personally, I find that very inspiring. I think it's when you've got the greater long-term good front of mind from everyone across government to civil society to industry to businesses that are truly trying to drive that, you think about collaboration in a very different way. You think about opportunities in a very different way. You want to leave a workforce that are proud to be Welsh and they're proud to be based in Wales. They want to stay here. You don't have talent that's trained here and then whatever goes to work in London or Singapore or whatever, right? They want to stay here. And the more Wales transforms itself into a globally leading destination, the more it's actually going to be the place where people want to come. There's also the benefit that Wales has really surprisingly good food and fantastic beaches, which I was very pleasantly surprised about. And the people are warm and friendly and so on. So there's so much that the country has to offer. I think just to wrap up, and the speakers will be available if anyone wants to ask any of us any questions at the end of this discussion. But I know that we've got 1 minute left, and then I'm sure we're going to get kicked off the stage. So just to wrap up, I think that some points that have been made are really interesting, right? It's not just the likes of the known hyperscalers, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, right? It's investing in startups. It's making sure that we're enabling the innovative ideas, the budding ideas and opportunities that are coming from AI as well. It's thinking about AI across the ecosystem, not just AI is this thing that happens in the big data centers that we all use Copilot and ChatGPT for to make our lives easier when we're traveling and planning our holiday destinations and so on. It's really something that can seep into every aspect of the way we do business, the way we do life, how we plan our health, how we respond to medical needs, how we use AI for societal good. The thread of trust, responsibility, and the ethical underpinning, I think, is really important. Often when we hear those words associated with AI, we think more around like the safety component, right? But simply the fact that you can trust that the data coming back at you and the information and the insights coming back at you are reliable in whatever, right? In how you're optimizing your processes in your business, your manufacturing structures, whatever it might be, just knowing that it's reliable and that you can base founded business decisions off of it, strong government decisions off of it, I think is a really impactful topic as well. So overall, I just want to thank the speakers. It's been a pleasure listening to all of you and having the multitude of perspectives from government, from the leading edge, from NVIDIA's perspective, from the energy ecosystem, from Schneider's perspective. And thank you to all of you for being here with us today. Hope that you enjoy the rest of Wales Tech Week. And thank you to Avril for organizing this event. It's been really a pleasure to meet the ecosystem that in this room, in the hall outside there, are really going to be part of the foundation of driving an AI economy for Wales. So thank you very much, everybody.